It started on a rainy Tuesday morning in Seattle. Claire Emerson stood at the airport terminal, wearing jeans that had faded over the years and a hoodie that once belonged to her brother. She didn't look like a woman married to one of the most powerful billionaires in the world. And honestly, she didn't want to. That kind of attention always came with fake smiles, tight dresses, and judgmental stares. Today, she just wanted to travel in peace. She clutched her boarding pass for East Sky Airways, ironically the same airline owned by her husband, Damon Emerson. It wasn't like she got a free ride. No one at the counter recognized her last name, and she didn't correct them when they mispronounced it either. She'd booked this flight under C. Miller, her maiden name, to avoid any spotlight. All she wanted was to visit her sister in Vermont without a full security detail or people bending over backward to kiss her designer heels. She wasn't. Even wearing heels. Claire boarded late. Gate 22 was chaotic, the crew flustered and snappy. She figured they were just overwhelmed, until it became personal. "Ma'am," said the flight attendant with frosty politeness, "this line is for Priority Plus only." "I am Priority Plus," Claire replied, holding up her boarding pass. The attendant didn't even glance at it. She looked Claire up and down like she was trash clinging to a diamond. "Miss, we don't upgrade people based on pity or fake status. Please move aside." Claire blinked. The air thickened. A couple behind her shifted awkwardly. Someone scoffed. "I paid for this ticket," she said, quieter now, not wanting to make a scene. The woman snatched the ticket, finally reading it, then paused, clearly realizing Claire did have the correct seat. But instead of apologizing, she fake smiled. "Oh, well, please take your seat then," she muttered, walking off with a smirk. Claire exhaled slowly and walked into the cabin. People stared, some whispered. Maybe it was her clothes. Maybe it was the way she looked unsure. She wasn't used to this anymore. Not after 8 years of penthouses, private jets, and front row everything. But this was humbling. She settled into seat 2A, still stinging from the encounter. Just when she thought things might smooth out, another blow landed. A new flight attendant approached, this one younger, cockier, clearly trying to impress someone. "Excuse me, miss," he said. "This seat is reserved for first-class passengers." Claire didn't look up. "I am a first-class passenger." "No offense," he chuckled, "but I think you're confused. There's no economy seats past row 6. You can't just wander into first like this." Claire finally looked him in the eye. "Check your manifest. C. Miller, seat 2A." He didn't. Instead, he waved over someone else. The woman from the gate. More whispering, more eyes. "You need to leave the seat," the woman said again, louder this time, as if trying to set an example. Claire clenched her jaw. "Call your supervisor." That's when the murmurs started to swell, the audience enjoying the drama now. A couple across the aisle chuckled. One man pulled out his phone, recording. 15 minutes later, Claire was escorted off the flight, not dragged, but definitely humiliated. No one apologized. Not once. They handed her a rebooking voucher, like she was a burden. She stood near gate 20, numb. Rain smeared the glass windows as she watched the plane she had rightfully paid for taxi down the runway without her. Claire pulled out her phone. She hadn't told Damon she was flying commercial. Today, she didn't want the fuss. She didn't want the headlines, but now she was furious. She tapped his name. The line rang twice before he picked up, his voice warm and distracted. "Hey, baby. You good?" Claire's voice was ice. "You might want to have a chat with your airline's crew, Damon." "What? Why? What happened?" She paused, breathing in slow. "They just kicked your wife off your plane." The silence that followed her words was cold and sharp. Damon Emerson never stayed quiet this long, not even during hostile board meetings or legal showdowns, and that said something. "They what?" he said finally, his voice clipped and low like he was holding back a storm. Claire had never called him like this. She wasn't the kind to make a scene. She wasn't dramatic. That was one of the things he loved most about her. But hearing her now, so cold, so contained, it scared him more than yelling ever could. "They removed me from the flight, accused me of faking my seat, treated me like garbage. I didn't use your name. I didn't want any special treatment." She hesitated, her voice shaking slightly. "But they didn't just make a mistake, Damon. They made sure I felt beneath them. like dirt. Damon didn't ask what flight. He already knew. "I'll call you back," he said and hung up. Claire sat down on the hard terminal bench. She stared at the floor, heat burning behind her eyes. The humiliation hadn't worn off yet. It stuck to her like a bad smell, like she still hadn't washed off the way the flight crew looked at her, like she wasn't worth anything unless she wore gold heels and a designer bag. She wasn't sure what Damon was going to do, and part of her didn't care. But another part, a very human part, wanted to see those smug faces realize who they had just kicked off that plane. It took Damon less than 20 minutes to flip an entire industry's pulse on its head. He called his assistant first. "Get me footage from Gate 22. I want the crew list, all of them. I want names, contracts, disciplinary files, and anyone who had any role in that boarding process." "Yes, sir." "And patch me through to Harris at legal, now." By the time Claire got a bottled water from the overpriced vending machine, Damon had already summoned a high-level storm into the airline's operations. His voice was calm on every call, but the commands were brutal. One by one, departments began scrambling. The captain of the flight was mid-air when his inbox pinged with an alert. Urgent owner directive. Meanwhile, in the airport staff, Lounge, the gate agent, the one who'd smirked at Claire, was laughing about that ragged lady who tried to sneak into first class. She was showing a co-worker the security footage they had access to. Her face was priceless when I told her to step aside. The co-worker laughed until his phone buzzed. His face paled. "What's wrong?" she asked. He handed her the phone. She read the message once, then again, effective immediately. "East Sky Airways is under executive review. All crew at Gate 22, Flight 879. Report to Admin Level 3. No exceptions. Suspension pending investigation." The color drained from her face. Back in the terminal, Claire's phone buzzed again. Damon. She picked up. "They're being dealt with," he said simply. "Damon, I didn't tell you to do anything. I just wanted—" He cut her off gently. "You wanted them to treat you like a person. And they didn't. They treated you like trash. That's not a mistake. That's culture. And I'm going to tear it out from the roots." She didn't say anything. "I'm sending a jet to pick you up," he added. "It'll be there in an hour. Wait in the VIP lounge." She wanted to argue. She hated when money solved everything, but today, maybe she was okay with it. An hour later, Claire was boarding a sleek black jet with no logos and an interior that smelled like quiet power. The staff on board knew exactly who she was, and not one of them dared offer fake politeness. They offered genuine respect. She barely spoke the whole flight. Damon was waiting on the tarmac when she landed. No press, no PR, just him in a black coat, pacing. His jaw was tight. She stepped down, and he walked toward her, pulling her into a hug. Not showy, not for attention, just firm and real. "I'm sorry," he murmured. Claire exhaled against his chest. "It's not your fault. It is. It's my name on that airline, my culture, my standards." She stepped back. "Then, change it. Not for me, for everyone who ever got treated like I was." He nodded. "I plan to." The East Sky Airways headquarters in Manhattan was in a state of quiet chaos. Not the kind with people running down hallways or alarms blaring. No, this was corporate chaos. Hushed meetings in glass offices, nervous glances over laptops, and legal teams moving with speed that made interns sweat. News had leaked faster than anyone expected. The headline was already spreading on business gossip sites. "Woman wrongfully kicked off first class. Turns out she's married to the airline's billionaire owner." Inside the building, executives panicked. No one knew how Damon had found out so fast, or why he was taking it so personally. The senior VP of operations, Gerald Yates, had just returned from a golf trip when he found his office locked, his access revoked, and 2 security guards waiting for him. "You're needed on level 6, one of them said. "Why?" Gerald frowned. "You'll want to speak to Mr. Emerson directly." Gerald's stomach dropped. By that afternoon, 3 employees from Gate 22 had been suspended, but Damon wasn't satisfied. He was after something deeper. "This isn't about my wife," he told the executive board that evening. "This is about who we've become." The boardroom fell silent. No one dared interrupt him. Claire sat to the side, not part of the meeting but invited by Damon to witness what was happening. "We have systems in place," someone finally said. "Protocols, training sessions. And yet my wife, dressed like a normal traveler, was humiliated, degraded, and removed from a plane she rightfully paid for." Damon's tone didn't rise, but every word hit like a hammer, because she didn't look the part. A low murmur swept the room. She didn't want VIP service. She didn't flash her last name. And what did your crew see? A woman in sneakers, no makeup, and that was enough to treat her like garbage. Damon stood. "This is no longer just about 3 employees. This is about culture, from the top down." Claire watched him, a strange knot twisting in her stomach. Part of her was proud. Another part was worried. Damon wasn't just fixing a problem. He was declaring war on complacency. Later that night, she stood in their apartment's massive kitchen, holding a cup of tea while watching the city lights blink beneath her. Damon walked in, loosened his tie, and sighed. "They're going to fight me on this," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "So of course they are," Claire replied. "You're threatening their comfort." He nodded. "It's deeper than I thought. This wasn't an isolated incident. HR buried 4 similar complaints this year, all dismissed." She turned to face him, because they weren't married to the CEO. That hit him hard. "I want you to lead the culture audit," he said suddenly. Claire blinked. "What? You're not on payroll, you're not corporate, you don't have to protect anyone. That's exactly why you're the right person." She shook her head. "Damon, I'm not—" "You saw what they couldn't. Say you felt it. I need your eyes. I need someone who won't flinch when the truth gets ugly." He walked closer. "I'm not asking you to be my wife on this. I'm asking you to be the woman who got thrown off a plane and didn't flinch." "Oh," Claire stared at him. Could she do this? Could she walk into an empire built on his name and start tearing out the rot? "I'll think about it," she said quietly. The next day, Claire returned to the airport, not as a passenger, but as the newly appointed head of an internal investigation task force. Her name was on the security badge. Her access level was executive. And the looks she got, very different from before. Some staff looked away, afraid. Some smiled nervously, hoping. She remembered they weren't part of that crew. But Claire didn't say much. She walked straight through to the operations hub and asked for one thing. "I want the names of every passenger who's filed a complaint for discrimination, profiling, or staff misconduct in the last 2 years. The HR rep froze. "Ma'am, some of those cases are sealed." Claire raised an eyebrow. "Unseal them." And just like that, things started shaking beneath the surface. Names started appearing. Cases reopened. Claire read them one by one. A black businessman accused of posing as first class. A young single mother accused of faking a boarding pass. A disabled vet questioned for being disruptive during pre-boarding. It wasn't just a mistake anymore. It was a pattern. And Claire was about to shine a spotlight on it. Claire didn't expect the files to hit her like they did. One by one, she read the stories of passengers, not just mistreated, but targeted. Some complaints were brief, clinical. Others were raw, handwritten, emotionally charged. Several involved women who had been removed from flights or harassed by staff because they didn't look right for first class. She paused at one file. A middle-aged Latina woman traveling with her teenage son had been escorted off a flight mid-boarding. Staff had suspected fraudulent tickets because the son was wearing a hoodie and gold chain. Claire kept reading. Both tickets were valid. No apologies were issued. No refunds. That happened 6 months ago. No one had done anything. Claire slammed the file shut and stood, pacing the office Damon had temporarily given her in the operations building. Her stomach twisted. This was more than negligence. It was systemic, and worse, it was hidden behind polished smiles and scripted apologies. When she returned to the HR wing, a different vibe met her. The same rep from before gave her a tight smile, clearly less comfortable now that she was still digging. "You're really going through everything?" he asked. "Yes," she said flatly. "Is that a problem?" He hesitated. It's just, not all of those cases were substantiated. Some passengers get emotional. And some get abused, Claire snapped. Is that what you call emotion? He backed down quickly, but the tension stayed. People were watching her now, not out of respect, but fear. Whispers followed her through corridors, and somewhere in the higher floors, someone wasn't happy she was here. 2 days later, someone slid a manila envelope under her office door. No name, no note. Just a folder labeled, "For your eyes only, re-internal coverage." She hesitated, opened it. Inside were redacted emails, internal communications between senior staff, including Gerald Yates, the former VP who Damon had put on leave. The tone of the emails chilled her. We can't keep pretending these are isolated incidents. Do we really want headlines about profiling in first class? Bury it. Passengers like that are always looking for attention. Backer, Claire Emerson is digging too deep. If we don't slow her down, this gets messy. Claire's pulse pounded in her ears. Someone in this company had known exactly what was happening and deliberately hid it. And now that she was threatening the rotten foundation, they wanted her silenced. She stormed into Damon's office later that afternoon, the folder in hand. He was mid-call but hung up the moment he saw her face. "Read it," she snapped. He did. His jaw tensed. "Where did you get this?" "It was left for me. No name. Someone's trying to tell us something, or protect themselves." Damon stood. "Gerald," he knew. He's been in this business too long not to. "He's not working alone," Claire added. "These emails mention board members." Damon's eyes narrowed. "That explains why 2 of them pushed back on the investigation this morning." Claire crossed her arms. "You've built something powerful, Damon, but it's rotting from the inside, and it's not going to fix itself." He exhaled hard, nodded once, and picked up his phone. That night, an emergency board meeting was called. Only Damon and Claire knew what it was really about. By the time the executives walked into the high-rise conference room, the air felt different, heavy like it was holding its breath. Damon stood at the head of the table. Claire sat beside him. One by one, he placed printed emails on the glass surface. The executives glanced at each other. Some went pale. Others tried to act confused. "Someone's been trying to hide a pattern of discrimination," Damon said, voice low and measured. "You all know how I feel about that." One executive, a woman named Sheila, cleared her throat. "This isn't the way we handle internal concerns." "No, it's not," Claire interrupted. "That's the problem." Another man, Weston Crane, one of the original board members and an old-school airline vet, leaned back in his chair with a smug look. "You're letting your wife dig through sensitive files and turn this into a witch hunt. That's emotional. Governance, Damon, not leadership." Damon's jaw flexed. Claire leaned in, her voice steady. "You think I'm emotional? Try being humiliated in front of strangers because your hoodie doesn't scream millionaire's wife. Yeah, then tell me how to feel." Crane rolled his eyes, but Damon didn't miss the flicker of panic in them. "You're right," Damon said. "Maybe this is emotional, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. I gave Claire the authority to do this because she sees things you all don't, or refuse to." He paused, then added sharply, "And if any of you are part of the cover-up, I'll find out. I'll clean this company up even if I have to start over from scratch." No one spoke. The meeting ended in tension. Some executives walked out, stiffly, faces blank. But others, junior members, people who had stayed silent for years, looked at Claire with something like admiration. Later that night, Claire got another envelope. This time, it had a name. J. Langley, Ground Ops. Supervisor, willing to talk, knows more, afraid for his job. Claire smiled to herself. The silence was breaking. And the people at the top, they were starting to sweat. It was after 9 p.m. when Claire met J. Langley in a parking garage 3 blocks from East Sky's secondary operations building. She didn't like the secrecy, but Langley insisted on it. Said he couldn't risk anyone at HQ spotting him with her. He was in his early 40s, jittery, balding, with eyes that darted around every few seconds like he expected someone to appear from the shadows. His uniform was clean but wrinkled, like he'd been debating this meeting all day. "You came alone?" he asked, voice low. Claire nodded. I promised confidentiality. You're safe. Langley didn't look convinced, but he handed her a thick folder anyway. No envelope this time, just raw paper, edges curled from how many times he'd handled it. These are training directives, he began, sent out to select senior flight crew members and gate supervisors. Claire flipped through the pages, her brows knitting as she read. The language wasn't overt, but the message was clear. Be alert for suspicious passengers attempting to blend in with higher-tier clientele. Ensure first class maintains expected visual standard. Observe attire, behavior, and ticket legitimacy. Unusual combinations may indicate fraud. Claire's stomach turned. They told staff to profile people, she whispered. Langley nodded quickly. Not in those exact words, but yeah, they call it presentation scanning. Sounds like security, but what it really means is, if they don't look rich, don't trust them. Her hands shook as she turned another page. These were approved by corporate, she asked. He hesitated. That's the thing. They weren't exactly official. The memos didn't go through the main HR or ethics channels. They were sent quietly, from Gerald's office, BCC'd. Sometimes through private emails. It's been going on for at least 2 years. Claire's jaw clenched. So the airline has been systematically encouraging discrimination and trying to bury it. Yes, and you weren't the first high-profile passenger to get treated like that, Langley added. You're just the first one they didn't. Recognize soon enough to backtrack. She closed the folder and looked him in the eye. Why tell me this? Langley's throat bobbed. Because my niece was one of those passengers. Last year. They flagged her at boarding. She missed her graduation trip. My supervisor laughed it off, told me she should have dressed nicer. I kept quiet then, but I've been sick about it since. Claire exhaled slowly. Thank you for coming forward. You did the right thing. I just hope it's enough, he said, looking away. Because if you go public with this, you're going to make enemies. Real ones. Claire didn't respond, but her silence was answer enough. The next morning, Claire placed the file on Damon's desk. He scanned the documents, his expression darkening by the second. This is a lawsuit waiting to happen, he muttered. Dozens. No, this is a scandal, Claire corrected him. One we either own or get destroyed by when someone leaks it first. Damon rubbed his forehead. What do you want to do? Claire looked him in the eye. I want to clean house. Publicly. That means firing people, naming names, and making a statement, one that says, East Sky will no longer tolerate gatekeeping. Wealth through appearance. Damon didn't hesitate. Do it. Within hours, Claire had called a press conference. She'd spent the night crafting her speech. It wasn't polished, but it was real. That afternoon, she stood behind a podium. Reporters flashing cameras, the world curious about what Mrs. Emerson had to say. I'm not here today as the wife of East Sky's CEO, she began. I'm here as a woman who was kicked off a flight because I didn't look rich enough to belong in first class. A ripple ran through the crowd. And I've since learned I wasn't the first or the last. East Sky has a cultural rot that goes beyond a few bad apples. It's systemic, disguised as professionalism, masked as protocol, but at its core it's prejudice, and it ends now. She looked out into the sea of stunned faces. Effective immediately. All staff who contributed to discriminatory practices, either through action or silence, are being terminated. We are launching a third-party audit, and we are publicly releasing every redacted complaint filed in the last 3 years, with passenger consent. One hand shot up. A reporter. Are you worried this will damage the company's image? Claire didn't blink. The image was already damaged, we're just choosing to stop hiding it. After the press conference, the fallout was immediate. Social media exploded. Some praised Claire as brave, others called her reckless, but victims started speaking out. Hashtags trended. Former passengers told their stories, and East Sky, it was bleeding. But for the first time, that bleeding felt like the start of healing. Still, not everyone was happy. That night, Claire received an anonymous message through her hotel room door. A printed note, just 5 words. "Stop digging, or you'll regret it." Claire stared at it, heart pounding. Her hands didn't shake this time. She folded the note, threw it in the trash, and whispered to herself, "Too late." The morning after the threat, Claire didn't tell Damon about the note. Not yet. It wasn't fear that stopped her. It was strategy. If someone was watching her, if they wanted her scared, then the worst thing she could do was run to her billionaire husband and let him fix it with bodyguards and lawsuits. No, she needed to finish what she started. She tightened her coat and headed straight back to East Sky HQ. Her office was quiet, too quiet. The receptionist wasn't at her desk. The lights in the hallway flickered once. Claire stepped inside and immediately knew something was off. Her desk had been moved. Just slightly. The monitor tilted. The files she kept organized were shuffled, and one drawer was left cracked open. She opened it fully. The Langley file was gone. Her heart skipped. That was the file, the one with the fake training policies, the private emails, everything. Without it, she had no proof of the top-down corruption. Her stomach sank. She rushed to her backup, encrypted flash drive, hidden inside the base of her pen holder. Gone. She leaned back, shaking. Someone had broken into her office. Someone who knew exactly what they were looking for. Suddenly the door clicked. She turned fast. It was Damon. "Hey," he said, walking in, concerned. "You're pale. What's wrong?" Claire stared at him. Could she trust him with this? Of course she could, right? "I think someone's trying to shut this down," she said quietly. "They got into my files, took everything Langley gave me." Damon's face darkened. "I'll have security pull the footage." "No." Claire raised a hand. "Don't escalate. Not yet. If someone inside this building thinks they can scare me, they need to know I'm not running." Damon hesitated. "Claire, this isn't about pride, it's about danger." "I know, but if I act like I'm scared, they win." Damon didn't argue, but he didn't look convinced either. Later that day, Claire met with Langley again. This time at a downtown diner, Loki, and far from the corporate radar. "You were right," she told him. "Someone broke in, took everything." Langley leaned back, swore under his breath. "Damn it. I thought we had them." "Did you keep copies?" He hesitated, then nodded. "Hidden, off-grid, but if they knew I was the source, I'm screwed." Claire gave him a firm look. "I'll protect you, I promise." But even as she said it, she knew promises like that were dangerous in a world like this. East Sky wasn't just a company. It was an empire, and empires crushed people when their profits were at risk. That night, Damon invited her to a private dinner, just the two of them in the penthouse. No staff, no distractions, just music, wine, and a candle-lit table. But Claire noticed something. He was distracted, checking his phone more than usual. Tense. Finally, she asked, "What's going on?" Damon sighed, set his phone down, and met her gaze. "You're not going to like this," he said. Claire braced herself. "One of the board members, Weston Crane, is filing a motion to vote me out as CEO." The air left her lungs. "What?" "He's spinning it as leadership compromised by personal bias," Damon said bitterly. "Claims I'm letting you destroy the company's image." Claire's jaw tightened. "He's trying to discredit the investigation by making me your liability." "Exactly. And a few other board members are wavering. I can't stop the vote unless I have undeniable proof that they're involved in the cover-up." Claire stood, pacing. "That's why they stole the file. Not to shut me up, to kill your credibility." Damon nodded. "And if the vote passes, they'll bury everything, fire you, silence the story. And I'll be locked out." Claire looked at him, fire building in her chest. "Then we get that backup, we go public, and we burn them all." The next day, she met Langley again. This time he brought the backup copies. Every document, every email, even a few recordings. One of them was the real bombshell. It was a voice memo from Gerald Yates sent privately to Weston Crane. "If Claire keeps digging, we're screwed. Don't worry. I've already sent someone to clean up the files. Just make sure Damon's out before this hits press. If he won't protect the brand, we will." Claire stared at the waveform, hands trembling. This wasn't just sabotage. This was a coup. She looked up at Langley. This changes everything. And then she got the text. From an unknown number. You were warned. Now we go after him. Her blood ran cold. She called Damon immediately. He didn't pick up. She called again. Nothing. Then a call came in. But it wasn't Damon. It was security. Ma'am, Mr. Emerson was just found unconscious in the East Sky garage. We're dispatching emergency response now. Claire's world blurred. This wasn't just corporate politics anymore. It was war. The emergency room smelled like antiseptic and fear. Claire stood at the glass window, arms crossed, eyes locked on Damon, lying in the hospital bed. Pale, unmoving, a tube in his arm, a heart monitor blinking beside him like it was trying to reassure her he was still here, but it wasn't reassuring. He has a concussion, minor contusions, nothing internal, thank God, the doctor told her quietly. But he'll need to rest, no stress, no screens, no corporate warfare. Claire nodded absently. Her face was stone, but inside her blood boiled. This wasn't a robbery. This wasn't some freak accident. She knew exactly what it was. A message. They'd come after Damon because they couldn't shut her up, and they were counting on her breaking now, on her walking away. But all they'd done was set her on fire. She stayed with Damon until dawn. When his eyes finally fluttered open, he looked at her like he wasn't sure if it was real. They tried to make it look like I slipped, he whispered, voice hoarse. But I heard them. Claire leaned in. What did they say? He swallowed. They said, tell your wife to stop digging or next time we bury something for real. Claire's heart cracked, not from fear, from rage. That's it, she said, rising. No more hiding. No more press releases or statements. We go nuclear. Damon blinked. Claire. She leaned down, kissed his forehead gently. Rest. I'll handle the rest. She walked out of the hospital a different woman. First stop, the downtown office of Helena Ross, a ruthless investigative journalist who had a long-standing grudge against East Sky after they blacklisted her for exposing a fake charity tie-in 2 years back. Claire didn't waste time. I have evidence of systemic discrimination. I have documents, recordings, whistleblowers, and now I have proof someone assaulted my husband to silence the truth. Helena leaned forward slowly, eyes gleaming. This will burn them to the ground. Good, Claire said. Let it. By the time the expose hit Helena's media platform, it was like watching a dam burst. East Sky cover-up, discrimination, sabotage, and billionaire showdown. The story dropped names, dates, screenshots, voice memos, even listed the names of fired passengers willing to speak on record. Public reaction was instant and volcanic. Boycotts, protests, threats of shareholder walkouts. And then the real blow landed. The FAA launched a formal investigation into East Sky's operational ethics. That same day, Claire returned to headquarters. She didn't sneak in. She walked through the front doors like she owned the place. Because she did, and for the first time everyone knew it. Weston Crane was waiting for her in the boardroom, surrounded by the last of his allies. His face was red, eyes wild with panic. "You crazy little woman," he hissed as she walked. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I hope so," Claire replied, tossing the final set of files onto the table. "Because I did it on purpose." Crane stood. "You've destroyed this company." "No," Claire said, stepping closer. "You did. When you decided profit mattered more than people. When you trained staff to scan for appearance over ethics. When you assaulted your CEO and tried to make it look like a fall." Crane's eyes narrowed. "Prove it." She reached into her coat and pulled out a small USB. "Security footage, not from East Sky. From the city's public cameras. They caught everything in that garage, you and 2 of your hired goons, dragging Damon out of his car." Crane froze. The room went dead silent. "You're done," Claire said coldly. "You're finished, and you're going to prison." Crane tried to lunge across the table, pure panic, but security was already stepping in. 2 men grabbed his arms, dragged him back as he screamed and kicked. "You think you're a hero? You think people like you win in the end?" Claire walked toward the glass windows, watching the skyline. "No," she said softly, "but sometimes we burn everything down so people like you don't get to keep winning." The fallout was historic. Weston Crane was arrested and charged. Gerald Yates vanished from public life, but Helena promised more exposés were coming. Several board members resigned. And Claire? She wasn't done yet. In the days that followed, she launched a new initiative, Passenger First, an independent board that reviewed airline complaints, enforced diversity training, and reported publicly to regulators, not just shareholders. But she didn't stop there. She created a new travel program where appearances didn't dictate service and ticket status didn't define dignity. She made sure no one would ever be treated like she had been again. And Damon, recovering at home, watched her every move with awe. "You know," he said one morning, still bruised but smiling, "I used to think you were just quiet." Claire chuckled, handing him his tea. "I still am." He smirked. "Yeah? Then what do you call all this?" "Tours." She leaned in, kissed his forehead and whispered, "Justice." 3 months later, East Sky Airways was barely recognizable, in the best way. The old ads, shiny white businessmen clinking champagne glasses in first class, were gone, replaced by real, raw, diverse passengers from all walks of life. The slogan now read, "Respect at 30,000 feet." Claire had returned to Vermont once the dust settled, not to run, but to breathe. To remember who she was before billion-dollar lawsuits, boardroom warfare, and near-death threats. Her sister's cabin was quiet, perched on a hill, the smell of pine and wood smoke curling through the air. She sipped tea on the porch in jeans and a flannel. No bodyguards, no makeup, no press, just herself. The irony wasn't lost on her. This all started because she dared to look ordinary on a flight, and now the whole world had been forced to realize that ordinary people don't deserve extraordinary humiliation. She smiled as her phone buzzed, a message from Damon. "East Sky's stock is up. FAA audit passed. Board is clean, miss you." She replied simply, "Good, don't mess it up." But peace never lasted long in her world anymore. That night, while unpacking a box in the guest room, Claire found something strange tucked beneath. A pile of old books, an envelope, unmarked, no postage. She froze. It was the same kind of envelope the first threat came in. Heart thudding, she opened it. Inside was a photo. A grainy still of Claire at the diner with Langley. From weeks ago. On the back, handwritten in small ink, "You found one traitor, but there were 3. No signature, no date. Just that." Claire sat down slowly, pulse racing again, but her face calm. She didn't cry. She didn't panic. She just stared at the note for a long time before picking up her phone. She called Langley. "Are you safe?" she asked immediately. "Yeah, why?" "Check your apartment. Look for anything moved. I just got a warning. There's more of them." Langley swore under his breath. "You think it's someone still inside East Sky?" "I think it's someone above East Sky, maybe not even on the payroll." Her mind raced. Private investors, old money silent partners, someone who benefited from East Sky's shady policies without ever having to answer for them. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. The next morning, Claire returned to the city, quietly. She didn't alert the press. She didn't tell Damon she was back. She walked straight into the East Sky Records vault, where old deals, private, equity contracts and investment documents were buried in digital archives. And there it was, a name she hadn't seen before. Thomas Regan, silent shareholder, 11% stake, never attended a board meeting, but every discriminatory policy Claire had exposed, his name was in the financial trail. He'd funded the rot. She printed the file, slid it into her coat and walked out without a word. Later that night, she sat with Damon, who was back to full strength, laughing, holding her hand, telling her about the new mentorship program they'd just started for airline employees from underrepresented backgrounds. He looked so proud, so relieved that the storm had passed. Claire just smiled. She didn't tell him about Reagan, not yet, not until she was ready. Because sometimes storms don't just pass. Sometimes they circle back. And Claire Emerson? She wasn't just a passenger anymore. She was the turbulence.